Have you ever wondered about the history of Who Framed Roger Rabbit? In the late 1980s, cinema audiences were taken on a wild ride through a world where humans and cartoons lived side by side, a world of slapstick gags, murder mysteries, and genre-defining innovation. This wasn't your typical animated movie. This was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a cinematic roller coaster that fused live action and animation like never before. It was groundbreaking, expensive, chaotic, and against all odds, a resounding success. But the tale behind the film's creation is as wild as anything you'd find in Toontown. Welcome to History Wonder. What topics in history have you wondered about? Comment below and let us know what videos you would like to see. Our story begins in 1981 when author Gary K. Wolfe released a novel titled Who Censored Roger Rabbit? The book was a quirky detective story set in a world where cartoon characters called Toons lived among humans and spoke in speech bubbles. It was more noir than slapstick, with a darker, more cynical tone. Hollywood noticed. The rights were optioned by Disney, who saw its potential as a one-of-a-kind hybrid film. But translating Wolfe's surreal universe into a movie was no small feat. For years, the project floated in development limbo, too technically complex and too expensive to risk. At one point, Disney considered turning it into a modest TV movie with a live-action detective and animated animals. Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed. In 1985, the project landed in the lap of Touchstone Pictures, a Disney label that specialized in more adult fare. Suddenly, Roger Rabbit had a shot at going big. The breakthrough came when Steven Spielberg signed on as executive producer. With his clout, Spielberg brought in other studios, including Warner Brothers, Paramount, and Universal, convincing them to lend their iconic cartoon characters for cameos, a feat of Hollywood diplomacy never seen before or since. Then came director Robert Zemeckis, hot off Romancing the Stone and later Back to the Future, who had a bold vision to create a film that fused the slapstick charm of Looney Tunes with the dark tension of a 1940s noir thriller. Chinatown meets Tex Avery. To pull it off, he brought in Richard Williams, a Canadian-born animator working in the UK, whose talent bordered on genius and madness. Williams wasn't just creating characters, he was inventing an entire visual language to make them believably interact with the real world. At the center of the story was Bob Hoskins as Eddie Valiant, a washed-up, tune-hating private eye. Known for her gritty roles in British gangster films, Hoskins was an unusual choice, but his performance was a revelation. He brought gravitas and heartbreak to a world filled with slapstick chaos, often acting against nothing but empty air and tennis balls. His ability to see and react to tunes sold the illusion entirely. Then there was Roger Rabbit, voiced by comedian Charles Fleischer. Roger was an original character, a manic, anxious amalgam of Bugs Bunny, Goofy, and classic vaudeville. Fleischer committed to the role fully, even dressing as Roger on set, much to the confusion of the crew, to help Hoskins interact with something tangible. Jessica Rabbit, voiced by Kathleen Turner, was the sultry, animated femme fatale who delivered the immortal line, "I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way."
I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way.
Her design was a jaw-dropping exaggeration of 1940s pin-up glam, equal parts parody and icon. Christopher Lloyd, terrifying as Judge Doom, played the villain with over-the-top menace. His character, eventually revealed as, spoiler alert, a toon in disguise, gave children nightmares and sealed his place as one of the creepiest antagonists in film history. What made Roger Rabbit revolutionary was its technical audacity. Zemeckis and Williams refused to cut corners. Characters weren't just superimposed, they were lit correctly, shadowed precisely, and interacted with the environment. To achieve this, animators painstakingly matched every movement with practical effects. If Roger knocked over a lamp, the production crew had to move the real lamp. Then the animators matched Roger's actions frame by hand. There were over 82,000 animation cells used in the film. To sell the illusion, even complex camera moves, which traditional animation avoids, were embraced. The result was seamless. Toons held real objects. Their eyes reflected light. Their feet cast shadows. It had never been done before at this scale, and the effect was nothing short of magical. One of the film's most historic achievements was its cross-studio cartoon crossover. For the first and likely the only time, characters from Disney and Warner Brothers appeared on screen together. This wasn't just a gimmick, it was written into the film's DNA. There was Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse falling from the sky together. Donald Duck and Daffy Duck had a dueling piano battle. Betty Boop, Yosemite Sam, Droopy Dog, they all showed up. The only rule, no one character could outshine the other. Mickey and Bugs had to have equal screen time, a surreal kind of corporate diplomacy. It's the stuff animation nerds dream about and licensing lawyers fear. Despite the cartoon trappings, Roger Rabbit wasn't exactly a kids' movie. The tone was darker, more adult. Themes of prejudice, addiction, loss, and corruption ran through the film like wires through a circuit board. Eddie Valiant's brother had been killed by a Toon. Roger was framed for murder. Jessica's sultry demeanor and the club's risque humor raised eyebrows. And yet the movie walked a tightrope. It was edgy without being obscene, silly without being childish. In 1988, this was unheard of, and part of why the film exploded in popularity. Who Framed Roger Rabbit opened on June 22, 1988, and became an instant hit. It grossed $351 million worldwide, making it the second highest grossing film of the year, just behind Rain Man. Critics praised its innovation, humor, and heart. Audiences were blown away. The Academy took notice, too. Roger Rabbit won 4 Oscars, including Best Visual Effects, Best Film Editing, Best Sound Editing, and a Special Achievement Award for Animation. Suddenly, animation was cool again. Disney, which had been floundering in the early 80s, used the momentum to launch its Disney Renaissance with The Little Mermaid the following year. In the wake of the film's success, Roger Rabbit became a full-fledged brand. There were cartoons, comic books, video games, and merchandise galore. Disneyland opened Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin in Toontown. For a moment, Roger was as recognizable as Mickey Mouse. But oddly, the character never had staying power. Unlike Disney's traditional characters, Roger's appeal was tied to that one perfect storm of a movie. Plans for a sequel or prequel were tossed around, but internal politics, legal complexities, and the technological shifts kept them from materializing. Still, Roger Rabbit's DNA lived on. The film's techniques influenced everything from Jurassic Park to Toy Story. It proved that animation wasn't just for kids, it was a tool for cinematic storytelling with limitless potential. Fans have long wondered, why didn't Roger Rabbit get a follow-up? Well, there were attempts. A script for a prequel titled Roger Rabbit the Toon Platoon was written in the 90s, featuring Roger joining an army in World War II. Another script, Who Discovered Roger Rabbit, involved Nazis and Jessica's mysterious origins. Steven Spielberg, wary of using World War II again after Schindler's List, backed out. Technology advanced, but the spark never returned. Zemeckis said he'd only return if the film used traditional hand-drawn animation, but Disney leaned towards CGI. Eventually, it became clear Roger Rabbit was a once-in-a-lifetime alchemy. The stars aligned in 1988 and haven't ever since. More than 3 decades later, Who Framed Roger Rabbit remains a masterclass in filmmaking. It's a love letter to the golden age of cartoons, a pioneering example of special effects, and a rare beast. A blockbuster with brains, heart, and slapstick brilliance. The film pushed animation into the future by honoring its past. It introduced a generation to the likes of Betty Boop and Goofy, while proving that cartoons could handle complex storytelling. In many ways, we're still chasing the high of Roger Rabbit. Every live-action/animated hybrid owes it a debt, from Space Jam to Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, but none have matched its balance of style, substance, and sheer audacity. Who Framed Roger Rabbit was more than a movie, it was a cultural event, a technical revolution, and an artistic miracle. It turned an obscure book into a global phenomenon, gave us unforgettable characters, and changed how we saw animation forever. For anyone who's ever dreamed that their favorite cartoon could leap off the screen and into the real world, Roger Rabbit made it happen. And to that we say, please. never forget how one crazy rabbit redrew the rules of Hollywood. Thanks for watching.